Alrighty, today we have a 4,000 PSI pressure washer. Brand doesn't really typically matter in pressure washers, as long as you have a Honda motor and a General pump or a Shark pump. Anything with steel internals is going to be a good bet. We run typically BE pumps, but we've carried Pressure Pro and several other brands over the years. This is going to be a 4-stroke motor, so it's going to take straight gasoline. All of our machines come with the oil already checked, full tank of fuel. It goes out full, you do not have to bring it back full. So running through the operation of it, we're going to start off just with the base machine, and we're going to come back and I'm going to show you a couple different attachments that we offer as well that can really increase your productivity and safety while doing the job. So starting off on the machine, down here, you want to start off with your high pressure side always. High pressure side is going to be just a standard quick connect. Pull back on the female collar, slide the male side into place, and lock it down. Same thing goes from your wand to your hose. Pull back on your collar, slide in, and make sure it locks down into place. Important part, don't ever squeeze the trigger here when you have water hooked up to the machine without a tip inside of it. The tip will, the O-ring that holds the tip in and keeps it from leaking will blow out and it'll leak on you the entire time. On the machine, they can be placed in a couple different locations, but we send all of our machines out with 3 different tips. Starting off, high pressure, which is a 15-degree tip, good for concrete or asphalt. Medium, 25-degree tip, green, good for wood. Or a light-duty tip, which is a 40-degree low-pressure tip, good for vinyl siding and applications such as that. Whichever tip you choose to use, just pull that bad boy out, and we're going to insert it into the end of our wand. Pull back on your collar, slide in, and pop that all the way up. You'll hear an audible click. Make sure you hear that click. You'll see on the end of the tip here, it actually has a directional spray, so which is kind of important when you're using your wand just for comfort, to make sure you twist that in the direction that you want it at. And most of the time it takes a couple different times spraying it until you figure out exactly the angle you want to work with. Now that we have the high pressure side hooked up to the machine, we're going to go back and hook our low pressure side up, which is going to be just your standard garden hose coming from the house to the machine. I like to always make sure I turn the water hose on while hooked up to the house before I hook it up to the machine, just for about 5 seconds. That's going to clear out any debris that may be left inside of the hose, such as rocks, a little bit of grass, anything like that could have run in from the last storm. So turn that water on from the house, let it run through the hose for about 5 seconds. Once that happens, go ahead and shut it back off. You're going to have a good clean hose. To hook up, simply screw it on. Make sure you're real good about getting this nice and tight. Make sure your O-ring and little screen is set in there. That's going to keep the machine from leaking on you and just being kind of a hazard and a pest the whole time. Once you have the water turned on to the machine, we're going to go through the starting procedures. I'm going to be a bit of a hypocrite here and start the machine without water hooked up, but traditionally you don't ever want to, because your valves are actually lubricated and cooled using the water that passes through them. So to start the machine, we're going to have an on-off switch right here, as all GX series Hondas do. We have 3 different levers over here you'll see. The top one, which is typically a galvanized steel. This one has a little green paint on the end. That's your throttle, which on pressure washers is set at full throttle, which is to the right. Low throttle would be to the left. Your next and more important lever is going to be the gray lever right here in your choke. That is off, that is on. The next one down is going to be your fuel shutoff. That is on, that is off. So for startup, all you're going to care about on one of these is that choke lever. Turn your on-off switch on, come back over to your choke it, and then we're going to give it just a nice light pull. When starting these, make sure you have your hand positioned good on the machine so it doesn't jump, but be careful because your exhaust is sitting right next to the air breather housing here, and if you put your hand on that, as the picture signifies, you're going to have a nice tattoo for the rest of your life. Coming down here, put your hand on good and firm. Nice, short, strong pull. I know that was kind of quick, but didn't want to run it without any water hooked up. What I did was, as soon as it started, I shut that choke off and the machine was good and ready to go. You do, especially on cold days, want to allow this machine to warm up for 45 seconds to a minute before you start using it. Otherwise, the oil is going to be so thick, it's going to stall right back out on you. One notable thing, while you're using the machine, if you take a break at any point and say you go in to get a drink and cool down for a minute, you come back out to the machine, and when you go to pull this thing, it's tight and it won't pull. A lot of people think that the motor's locked up. It's not on a pressure washer. What you have is called a hydro lock. All you need to do is simply come down here to your trigger, squeeze that trigger, and it's gonna go and let all the pressure that was built up, the residual pressure from when you shut the machine off, it's gonna release that. And it's gonna allow you to easily pull your recoil again, like you should be able to. Past that on the pressure washer, that's gonna be pretty much your base operation on that. Shy of refueling, always make sure you allow the machine to cool down. Always make sure the machine is set on the flat ground area, not on a hillside, because the vibration will allow it to roll down and away from you. A couple of those attachments I was talking about beforehand. We'll start off with the more simple ones and go back into the more complex ones. First one is gonna be what's called a gutter guard, gutter cleaner. All it is really about a 160-degree turn. What you do with the machine shut off and the water shut off from the house and bled out, you're gonna remove your tip, put your gutter cleaner onto it, and then reinsert your tip into your gutter cleaner. And what that does is allows you to be able to reach up onto those gutters and spray this at an angle, flushing out any grass, any leaves, any dirt, any asphalt that's caught up inside of there. Very good idea to do, at least end of fall or the beginning of the spring, to go ahead and flush those gutters out before the heavy spring rains come. Next attachment that we'll talk about is going to be an extension wand. So let's say you don't have that one-story house. You have a two-story house. You don't want to get up on a ladder for safety or whatnot. These 18-foot extension wands come in really handy. You'll see on the end you have a quick connect for your tip with a black O-ring inside of it, just like the wand did. And you have two different adjustments here to telescope this wand out further. It comes out of there and it comes out of there. I'm not going to telescope it all the way out since we're inside, but you can see pretty simply how you can adjust that out and then lock it back down into place, giving you that real height that you need to reach up to second stories. The third option I'm going to show you is actually probably the most useful option. This is called a hydro scrubber. This is a 21-inch variant. The great thing to a hydro scrubber, it's actually going to hook up to your machine just like your wand did in place of your wand. You'll still use your wand for the fine work, such as around stairs and the perimeter of driveways and whatnot, but you just disconnect your wand with the machine off, the water turned off from the house, and go ahead and hook that quick connect right up to the handle assembly right here, which is the exact nail fitting that's on the end of your wand. Using this machine now, instead of being bent over and uncomfortable with the wand working back and forth all day long, now you're able to stand up in the upright direction, having good posture. Squeezing in on the trigger, the machine's going to oscillate two different sprayers in a centrifugal motion, which is going to spray that entire 20-inch area in a single pass. This is about the speed that you're going to work a hydro scrubber at. Essentially, it's going to make your job about 8 times faster. So if you have an 8-hour driveway, you just turned into a 1-hour driveway. It's a very common tool for us. We push a lot because it saves customers. They can rent it. Yes, there is an additional rental cost, but they can end up getting back quicker on the pressure washer, getting a cheaper rental cost, which actually negates the whole thing and saves them about 8 times as much wasted time out on the job site and backache the next day. That's all I have for you today, but thank you for joining in with ABZ Rental.